All right, y'all. Dude, I know that Ryan Earl has been here since at least 6 o'clock. Homeboy still cannot make it to the class on time.
And he's gonna say it's Lauren's fault.
He is going to say it's Lauren's fault, and when he does, we're going to rebuke him publicly. We're going to let him know that he is lying to himself. Okay, a couple things really quickly. So, the first time that we did this this form class, there was 8 weeks. Obviously now there's 12. So I'll kind of tell you through some of the things that we've added. So 6 of our sessions in the first time that we did this were strictly centered around spiritual disciplines, like specific spiritual disciplines. And I sent out some surveys about some of those disciplines afterwards, and just like, hey, how do you think that this was covered? Would you like more time, less time, stuff like that? And there were some of them that got kind of pinged to saying, hey, we need more time with this one. So, and there's some other ones too that I would say that we probably need more time with it, but it's a lot to take in, and I would say it's a little bit more private. So, like for example, when we get to the spiritual discipline, it'll be kind of towards the end. When we get to the spiritual discipline of confession, I think that's something that you guys are. We can talk about the principles, we can talk about the Bible behind it. We can talk about all those things, but I think that's something that in your mind you've got to work out some, and so that's not going to be something that we necessarily try to like work out as a group. But some of these things though, and for example, prayer. Prayer is going to be very straightforward. We've got a lot of emphases on prayer right now in different parts of the church. So you're going to have the session on prayer. You're going to have other things on prayer going on in other areas of Central Baptist life. So I don't really feel like the need to have 2 weeks of prayer. But this one here, as we talked about the church last week, really felt the need that this one needed 2 weeks, because I think it's one thing to talk about the principles, which we kind of did last week. We talked about the principles of what it looks like to participate in church, but now we got to get specific. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and throw out, because some of these questions you may have an answer, and you may be like, what, Kobe's on staff, that guy's great, I don't want to hurt his feelings, all right? Or you might be like, Kobe's on staff, he's not that great, but I still don't want to hurt his feelings in a public setting, all right? It's okay. This is a safe place. There's not a whole lot of us, so this is designed this way. We want to talk about some difficult things that may involve some weaknesses that maybe we have as a staff, maybe that I have as a family pastor. Maybe that our Sunday school classes have, or whatever. It's a safe place. I don't want it to just be like an unload session. Hey, let me give all my... Have you ever seen Seinfeld? Like the Seinfeld... oh my gosh, no Seinfeld watchers? Yeah. Daniel? Okay. Bless you. I knew you were a good guy. Y'all never seen Seinfeld?
We've seen
I watched it.
We watched it 2 years ago.
Come on. Have you ever y'all remember the episode about Festivus where they have the period of airing your grievances? No? Oh man, well that joke just...
for the rest of us.
Yes. Okay. Go home tonight. If you have Netflix, check out Seinfeld. Go to the episodes on Festivus. But anyways, the reason I bring it up is there's this portion where the old man is George's dad. He's really funny. Stiller. I can't remember his last name. Ben Stiller's dad, Jerry Stiller. Where he part of this Olympic festivities that he made up for his own family is the airing of grievances. All right, that's not what we're looking for. Like tonight, he would just get up and be like, "And you did this, and you did that." Kind of what we're looking for tonight is just some feedback to maybe help each other along on the journey. Hey, bro.
Hey.
Question.
Sir.
Question. I know you've been here eating since at least 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Good question.
6:35.
Yeah. Trying to help my wife and your wife get out of the place.
Who said it? Somebody said it. Somebody said that your wife was going to get the blame. And I said that we were going to publicly rebuke you.
And I made her water.
But now you threw my wife under the bus this time.
Where is she?
She's over in the studio.
She'll be coming in with my wife in about 5 minutes.
All right, so there's kind of 2 things I want to do. So I want us to start. I tell you what, we'll kind of just do a little bit of teaching stuff, and then we'll get to the conversation, because the teaching stuff might actually benefit the conversation. All right, it's a very, very short thing that I want to talk about, but I just want to talk about how, and by the way, everything I'm about to share with you is fact. The conclusions that you draw from it can differ. I might tell you all these things, and then you and I can both acknowledge these things I'm about to talk about as fact. But then you might be like, well, I don't follow you there. I don't have the same conclusion that you do. That's perfectly fine. All right. I'm going to give you the fact pattern. I'm going to give you what myself and other scholars, not all scholars, but plenty of other scholars have, said, hey, this is the conclusion from these things, and then we can kind of talk about it. So the way to understand how the American church is structured today, and I'll say this, the American evangelical church. All right, we are evangelicals by nature, just being Baptists, or by nature being Southern Baptists. So the American evangelical church has been impacted by four major movements in American history. Number one is the First Great Awakening. A lot of you have heard of the First Great Awakening probably because of the guy Jonathan Edwards. He was a pastor who became very famous for his sermon. I'm just going to be honest, I got problems with it. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But his sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. All right, like that was the sermon that really put him on the map. And it's one of those like sermons that you're going to either fall in my camp and you're just like, golly, I just don't like it. Or you'll fall into this other camp and you're like, that's the greatest sermon that's ever been preached. Like there is no in-between with this particular guy and this particular sermon. I think he was a brilliant guy, by the way. I just don't like that sermon in particular. But like I said, there is no in-between with that. But that sermon sparked something. And it was known as the First Great Awakening, where people really started to repent and confess Jesus as Lord. And there was a ton of new converts into Christianity during that time. Now, Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield, some of these guys that are very popular around that time, I think that we should have a good level of respect for them. I don't think that there's any doubts about that. One of the things that we cannot deny is that at this time, what you saw in local churches, so churches like Central Baptist, churches like Fellowship, churches like the Methodist Church, the Cornerstone, People's Church, like local churches, is that the emphasis on Sunday mornings went away from discipleship and spiritual formation and went toward we need to make Christians. And so, like, because of that emphasis, there was a ton of people in that First Great Awakening that became Christians. What we did see, and like I said, this is just fact, what we did see is a decrease in discipleship. The second event is the Second Great Awakening, and this one is a lot more problematic, in my opinion. All right, because I do think that you have Jonathan Edwards, regardless of what you think about his famous sermon. I think he was a great guy, great pastor. George Whitefield, great guy, great pastor. Then you get to the Second Great Awakening, where there's a guy by the name of Charles Finney. All right, has anybody in here ever heard that name, know anything about it? So Charles Finney was a guy who really popularized the traveling preacher. And he had this circuit that he would ride. I think it was like in northwestern United States. And basically got to this place where, and by the way, apparently outstanding communicator. Like, I mean, really could preach and had a way with words. But realize that if you get people to this place of like deep emotion, if you get people really fretful, really fearful, if you get people really stressed out, if you get people to this place where like emotions are just incredibly high, that they are more apt to making a major life decision. And so his preaching centered around this idea of emotionalism almost. And I can't remember, golly, he had this bench and they called it something that he would pretty much demand be put in these churches that he was preaching at. And I want to say it was called like the sweating bench or something like that. I might be way far out there. One of y'all can probably Google that. If you typed in Charles Finney and then bench, it would probably come up. I don't know. But it was a funny name. But like essentially what he would do is that's when the altar call became really prominent. Hey, come down front, and if you need to do business with Jesus, here's your spot to do that in. And like apparently people would be like wailing and like profusely crying, and it would just be this place. Did you find it?
The anxious bench.
Oh, the anxious bench. That's not as funny as I remember. That's not bad Like, come to the anxious bench. All right. And so, but like, I mean, it earned its name, right? Like, it was meant to draw out anxiety. And in that moment of great anxiousness, oh my gosh, am I going to go to heaven or am I going to go to hell? Okay, well, I want to go to heaven. And one of the things that they found during the Second Great Awakening, especially with Charles Finney in particular, I thought this was very interesting, is that they started mapping like these places that he would go. And after they realized that essentially his circuit of churches that he would preach at, that there would be this huge increase in conversions, but the morality of the city would just tank after he left. And essentially what they found is that like the preaching was centered around, hey, make a one-time decision for Jesus Christ here at the Anxious Bench. And now you are set, right? You've got your fire insurance. And I mean, once you got your fire insurance, hey, like, let the house burn. I got my insurance. You know, like somebody else is going to build it back. It's going to be good, right? And so the Second Great Awakening was a huge thing. The third thing that happened in American history that we know as a fact is the rise of fundamentalism and evangelicalism, okay? So this one is kind of back to the first one where it's like, hey, there were some real positives, but also there's some negatives. So right at the end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s, science was becoming more prominent. Theories on evolution were not just teaching people about evolution, but they were actually preaching against Christianity. Hey, if evolution is true, then Christianity cannot be true because Christianity preaches a 6-day creation, 7th-day rest narrative. Christianity, the Bible teaches this 6,000-year-old earth, and evolution is shown that the earth is millions, if not billions of years old and things like that. Which, by the way, just in case any wondering about that, I think that as a Christian, you are actually probably well within Christianity if you believe either or, that the earth is young and evolution is false, or if you believe that evolution is a real thing. C.S. Lewis is one of the most famous of the last 100 years, where he publicly affirmed evolution, not because he necessarily believed that evolution was real. He was just like, look, if this is what science is showing us, then it must be from God, and so like it's okay. Like don't let it rock your faith and stuff like that. So anyways, you had evolution being taught. You had what they call liberal theology, okay, liberal Christianity. Now, in mine and your minds today, liberal theology, liberal Christianity, we're thinking about like, oh man, the wokes or whatever, like them dang folks over there, and it's oftentimes identified with a political party. Liberal Christianity or liberal theology is not in any way associated with politics. It's actually associated with the nature of the universe. If you are a liberal theologian, then you believe that there is no such thing as miracles. And if you believe that there's no such thing as miracles, then you don't actually believe that Jesus died and rose again. You essentially are looking at Jesus just as a person who died for his problems, but we got some really good things to learn from him. And so the Christians, the church at that time, kind of rose up against this teaching. And in their rising up against this teaching, went way too hard the other direction, which is what oftentimes happens, right? Like very rarely, I'll say this just about politics. It would be so delightful if instead of like having two people that are like polar opposites, if just somebody could come in the middle of something, right? But like our gut reaction whenever we hear something we don't like is, well, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to be on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. And so this fundamentalism rose, and with that fundamentalism, there was two things that came with it. One, which is a pattern that we've already been seeing, they still wanted to preach so that way they could get conversions. But two, discipleship became equivalent with head knowledge. If you know the right things, you're a good disciple. If you believe the right things, you're a good disciple. And so the shift came from, even before that, they understood, even though discipleship was on the decline, they understood like, hey, well, discipleship is a lifestyle, like to follow Jesus. That's what it means to be a disciple. Whereas with this movement here, it was like, no. Discipleship is me knowing the right things, being able to repeat the right things, believing the right things, so that way I can combat this, liberal theology and so on and so forth. And then the final thing is the church growth movement of the 70s and 80s. There's a couple of prominent church leaders during that time that really saw, I think, I don't know, you don't want to necessarily question their motives, because, I don't know them. But, I think that if you were to question their motives, you would say, okay, were they trying to just bring in more people to their churches so they could have large churches, or were they really trying to win people to Jesus? We don't know. But the idea was like, hey, the more butts we can get in seats in a church service on a Sunday morning, the better off things are going to be. And so obviously there's some problems with that, right? If church is the place where Christians can be unapologetically Christian, then you're going to have to get rid of some of that to help those people who are outside the church feel comfortable when they're inside the church, right? Like if church is the place where we're supposed to be doing the spiritual disciplines, doing spiritual formation, doing life together, and somebody comes in who is not a Christian, who doesn't want spiritual formation, who doesn't necessarily want to do life together, they're just trying to figure all this stuff out. Well, now our focus goes off of this group, the Christian group, and comes over here to be like, okay, well, what can we do to make them feel comfortable here? And so as a result of that, we saw discipleship continue to tank on Sunday mornings in particular. I want to contrast this with just a couple things that we know to be true about the early church. All right, so here's some things that we know to be true about the early church. You can read along with me. Number one, local church gatherings were not centered on the teaching and gifts of a few people, but rather on the church as a whole. Why do I say that? Because that's coming straight from Paul. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verses 26 through 33. We're not going to read it tonight, but I would encourage you to go check it out. Paul is laying out for the people, this is what a church service should look like. And by the way, the boundaries are very wide. He doesn't say hey, it has to be, this narrow path. The boundaries are very wide, but he's just like, hey, let 2 or 3 prophets stand up and speak. Not pastors, prophets, right? What's the difference between a pastor and a prophet? A prophet is somebody who has a spiritual gift of prophecy. A pastor was the person who was in the room, who was simply overseeing what was going on. He talked about speaking in tongues. He talked about singing hymns. He talked about all sorts of things. And so as a result of that, we see from Scripture that these early church gatherings were not centered around one guy preaching and one guy leading in worship or whatever, but it was more of like, hey, everybody can bring something in to this. And so let's see what everybody has to offer. Now, granted, those churches were tiny, all right? You're talking a big church would have been 20, 25 people at that time. I take that, maybe 50. Maybe 50 people would be a big church. But a lot of them are going to be around, 5, 6, 7, 8 families, something like that. They're just kind of together. So, if you would participate in one of our home groups at Central, that looks very similar to what a church would have looked like back then. The local church gatherings, the second thing, had a massive amount of participation and discipline, and the discipline of confession was practiced openly. So, again, there was participation in what was going on, and when I say that, there's a lot of movement, all right? You spent all day together. There was meals shared together. There was, the kids playing in the other room, and there's probably some switching out about who was checking in on that scenario. There's lots of participation in the deal. Everybody kind of had a role. And one of the things that they practiced openly that we talked about last week was confession, where it was your time. You stood up, you looked to the heavens, and you started confessing your sin. There is some question as to exactly how detailed those confessions were. I think that it is likely that many of the churches simply it's hey, this week I struggled with pride. This week I struggled with anger. This week I struggled with lust. This week I struggled with whatever. It's more these kind of general terms. But it could have been more specific than that. It's kind of hard to say. Local church gatherings actively participated in the Lord's Supper, and it was a very powerful moment for the early church. So much that within, I think, 200 years of the time, it might have even been 100 years of the time of Christ, that the church looked at the Lord's Supper as a means of grace, a means of receiving God's grace. That it wasn't just this symbolic act, but that it was actually coming in to the presence of God in a special way, inviting Him into the presence of the church in a special way, and in some way receiving grace in those deals. And then the final thing, and I have zero idea how this statistic came to be about. I'm very interested in it, but the guy who wrote it, I have a lot of trust in, so there you go. But statistically in the early church, 80% of evangelism was not done at the church gatherings. It was done outside of the church walls. So essentially, what do we mean by that? We mean that when the early church got together, they did not focus. It's not that they didn't care, but they did not focus on the visitor or the non-Christian. They focused on the Christian and what it means to be a Christian. And so if you were there and you were not a Christian, hey, like, welcome. Like, we're glad that you're here. But this isn't necessarily for you. This is for us. You can see what it looks like, and if you like it, hang out. If you don't, well, there's the door. There's kind of thing. And so the church was more empowered to go from that place into the marketplace, into the world, and be the hands and feet instead of relying on, they called them bishops back then, instead of relying on the bishop or one of these deacons, overseers, or something along those lines. So that is I know that's a lot of information. You got it all on paper, so you don't have to try to memorize all that right now, but I just kind of want to give that as a build up to our conversation here. You have the last 200 years of Christianity, or the last 300 years of Christianity in America, and you kind of see where we're at today, and then you have what the early church looked like. All right? So I have some questions. You have to participate. If you don't, we're going to be out of here very, very early. That's up to you. All right, so here we go. It's a safe place, except for Ryan. Ryan, it's not a safe place for you. But for everybody else, it's a safe place. All right, first question. List some ways, and I'm gonna be kind of writing some of these things. So there's a part of your homework last week to kind of process through things that Central Baptist Church offers. So list some ways that CBC offers opportunities for people to use their spiritual gifts on Sunday morning. All right, Sunday morning. Spiritual gifts.
Greeters.
Good.
Sunday
What
school
else?
teachers. Singers.
What else?
Musicians.
Okay.
/ they can go with singers.
Musicians have souls too, Robin. Come on. Should be judgmental of the singers.
The children's, all the people working with the kids.
Okay.
The coffee guys.
Easy.
The donut people.
Hopefully you guys have a hard job.
The half
Yeah.
donut.
Coffee guys. Yes. I'm gonna put coffee alcove bros.
Media.
Security.
Oh, yeah.
Good. What else? Do what? You said Kobe?
Yeah, why not?
What does that have anything to do with anything?
Well, you said this is my judgment,
The
judge
pastoral
zone,
team.
so.
Oh, I said it wasn't safe
So
for
I was just
you.
gonna
Okay.
put some randos out there.
The pastoral staff.
Okay. So like we do. Yeah, I mean, right.
And
You're validated now. Good job.
Thank you.
All right.
Together.
And what about isn't there a group of gentlemen that come real early and they pray?
Yeah, they do. Sure do. Yeah.
Prayer bros.
Pray.
There you go.
Anything else y'all can think of? Anything? Robin did her homework.
Outreach programs such as the shoebox.
I don't think that's a Sunday morning thing. We're just sticking with
Okay.
with the Sunday morning. Anybody got anything else that y'all want to add to this before we move on to Sunday night?
People who bring food. Like there's always food in the kids' hallways.
There
There
was
are some Sunday school classes that bring food regularly.
food sisters and misters.
Zach, these are
Yeah,
food.
careful there. Yeah, I mean there's. I'm just saying. I mean, like,
Clean.
do what?
I said, I'll put the people that clean on my homework. Like,
Okay.
they have their room for us on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Cleaning crews.
I guess the people that, the secretary that gets all the paperwork ready for all the Sunday school classes. She has to do that during the week, I guess.
Yeah.
Administrative.
I don't think I spelled secretary right. Is there two A's in that, or is that two E's?
Definitely spelled
Duties.
Okay.
That's her name, secretary. It's not the title. No, that was dumb. All right. Anything else? That's a good list. All right. Let's put a little box around that. Let's go PM. Sunday PM. What do we got?
Which week are we talking about? 'Cause every other week there's different things.
That's fine. Either.
Home
Yeah.
groups,
Okay.
home group leaders.
Okay. Yeah. So home group leaders. Good. What else?
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, SNL. There's lots of things in SNL. I mean, you got teachers,
Youth helpers.
yeah, youth helpers,
They make them dinner.
Food.
dinner people, yeah. But I know, like on home groups, there's people that aren't necessarily leading the home group that do the food.
Security bros are always here.
Security.
Holding down the fort. Ready to take action if necessary.
I'm ready to take it. They are trained up and lethal. Anything else? Okay. There I think are some homes, I'll say hosts. There's a few homes that like the people who lead the group don't meet in that home. Okay. Did somebody say something? I missed that. Okay. Wednesday night. Let's talk about Wednesday night.
You have your spiritual formation class.
Toby.
Yeah.
Be there.
Yep, there's lots of teaching roles. Good.
Food.
Food, that's a big one.
So we still have bus drivers that pick up kids?
Not at the moment, but that has been a thing kind of traditionally though. I'll put that on there, even though we currently don't have it. Drivers. What else? The students have small group leaders. Wait, what? SGL. There we go. I don't know what the first thing was. Small group leaders.
Worship rehearsal.
Yeah, worship for the big service and worship for the students. What else?
There's a cleanup crew that goes with the food.
There's a cleanup crew. What else we got?
Kids Bible study. Preschool and school age, I guess.
Kids and littles. Bible study.
Sometimes the grade schools have people come in and speak to them about certain topics.
Yeah, it's the mission stuff.
Yeah.
Mission people. Anything else on midweek on Wednesday night? Okay, so these are our three primary times for meeting: Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Is there any other times that you want to just like throw up there, like, hey, this happens and this is a role that is fulfilled? I know our widows. Our widows make. Now, is it widows or is it just old ladies?
Oh my goodness.
It's one of the.
Bible study.
At some point, it's both.
It could be. It could be. I don't know. I don't remember. I want to say that the widows do make a meal for feed the widowers.
Is it like the men and the women?
Yeah, like a widower.
Saturday morning, they make sandwiches for the Travis Tower.
Jessica said, is that a dating service?
Okay, well, that's why I could not remember. I couldn't remember if it was widows feeding the widowers. Cause I was like, man, there might be something there. But I feel like it's fairly innocent. So it might just be old ladies. I'm gonna put OL for old ladies. All right.
You have the women's Bible study.
Yeah. So you got the teaching role. We'll just kind of put a check mark there.
Making sandwiches for Travis Towers.
Yeah, that's right. Feeding Travis Towers. Fee Travis Towers, ATT, there we go. What else we got? Anything else that anybody can think of?
Mom's Club is my favorite.
Mom's Club, so food for there. And,
A parents' night out.
She provides the childcare. We go out to the escape room. It's fun.
childcare, yeah, parents not out.
Sign kids up.
Um,
My Thursday.
good. Anything else before we want to kind of move
Oh,
on?
you have mom's night out with Carolyn,
Carolyn, yep,
and Cece.
yep. What's that group called? Moms?
You could put MNO.
Mm-hmm.
Mom's not out.
MMO?
M
Oh,
N-
Moms, MNO, okay.
It was fun too.
Mom's not out. Anything else?
Would CCC count, or is that more of like an outreach than a?
You know, I would say that, but it's something that our church does, and it's something that we apply budget to. And so, yeah, I would say that there is a element of, I mean, there is like a teaching element, and there's a Bible study element. So I'd say that, yeah, that's a ministry. And then, of course, we have all sorts of things that don't happen weekly or monthly, like we got Fall Fest coming. There's different mission trips and things like that. Okay, fourth question. Well, actually, I want to add something. This list right here, just based, and I know that we haven't even taught on spiritual gifts. So maybe some of you have like some real knowledge there. Maybe some of you don't. That's okay. Are they jamming? Is it 7? 7.
Probably
Get ready.
going crazy.
Get ready. We're about to have the ominous piano. So my question is there anything on this list, or excuse me, think about spiritual disciplines. Are there any spiritual gifts? Are there any spiritual gifts that could not be exercised on this list that y'all can think of? Any spiritual gifts that cannot be utilized based on the list that we have here?
Speaking in tongues.
Some of those kids need a translator.
I think that you could practice that anywhere, but maybe you might get looked at. You're right.
Well, if you start doing that, tell them.
Well, you have to have a translator. Somebody has to translate it too. I mean, I just haven't seen that, so.
We don't want to see it.
I have never seen. I have had people. You know what? No, I take it back. Yeah, that's a weird one. I don't know much what to say about that one. I've only had somebody speak in tongues with me one time. I'll just leave that at that. I don't know. I don't know what to say
Any
about it.
follow up there?
Do what?
No follow up with that?
I mean, it was like it was oddly. It was oddly powerful, but at the same time, like I have no idea if it was legitimate. You know, like I don't know. Anyways, anything else other than speaking in tongues? Any spiritual gifts that y'all can think of? Okay. Are there any spiritual disciplines? And I know that for some of you, maybe you're just barely new to the spiritual disciplines, and you're kind of waiting on us to talk about some of them. That's okay. But are there any spiritual disciplines that we do not have a platform at Central Baptist Church to kind of work those spiritual disciplines out in a community setting? Any spiritual disciplines that y'all can think of?
Meditation.
Yeah, that's good. There, my board is kind of dumb now. Yeah, I would say that there are probably no avenues for that are designed for that, for sure. The closest thing that we get to, and we actually just kind of expedited this, is at Lord's Supper we usually have just like some time to reflect, but we just made it even shorter. So yeah, I'm saying we don't have time to meditate. Good, what else?
Prayer bros
What-
probably. The prayer bros can meditate probably. I mean, I guess not if they're praying. I don't know. Never mind. I'll take it back.
That could be a platform, and I that could be a platform. I have not ever been there with them.
I would think our meditation does need to be in prayer though. Like it wouldn't be just.
Yeah. Man, y'all are ahead of the game. Y'all are gonna love next week's session.
What about fasting?
Fasting.
Oh, yeah, there's
I
a lot
know.
of.
There's a lot of
That seemed like the whole list is covered.
We have food everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody gotta eat.
Do we have a platform to practice fasting as a community?
I mean, you could.
You could.
I don't think it's very encouraged or really just spoke about in general. But like, yeah, you could definitely, with your home group, we fast on Thursdays or whatever. But
That actually is how I got back in the groove of fasting, was with the home group. Yeah.
maybe our home group is slacking.
I'm telling you, if it wasn't for like the community element, your boy would be eating every day. 4 times a meal. Not 4 times a day, 4 times a meal. Got dessert,
We're going through
got
the
side dish, you got it. But I agree, fasting is not something that is necessarily a major emphasis right now. Is that fair? I think there's a platform, but it's just not something that's probably emphasized at most of those platforms. Anything else? Okay, last question. Should local churches like Central Baptist Church focus on evangelism or discipleship? What do y'all think?
Can you flip it?
No, this backside is like one of those bulletin boards from 1973. What do y'all think? Should local churches focus on evangelism or discipleship or both?
Both.
I
Alright.
think that discipleship, a focus on discipleship naturally leads to evangelism. So like, if you are really making sure that your church and the foundational members in it are, you know, are what they say they are and they're the real deal, they're gonna naturally, in their lives and, you know, whatever they're doing, their workplaces and stuff, attract, they're gonna have a friend that's like, he or she is different. Like, I need to go figure out what they're doing.
I think that is a great word. Let me refine the question just a little bit. Should the gathering of the local church, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, 3 primary gatherings, should that focus on, in fact, we can even split it up. Let's split it up. Let's go Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evening. Tell me where you land on this. Give me, I'm gonna just tally. So let's go Sunday morning. Discipleship, both, evangelism.
Can we pick all?
No.
I want to say at the main service, like
Main service, yeah.
AM. Or
Wait, so which one? You think-
discipleship.
Discipleship, okay, all right.
Discipleship.
Okay,
Discipleship. I think both in the
Okay.
morning.
all right. What y'all got there? Both,
Discipleship.
all right. Front row.
Oh.
You can't look behind you.
I thought you were going in the back.
Okay, sorry. Let me go back up to the.
Sunday school should be for discipleship,
Yes.
and church should be for
So
evangelism.
both. Yeah, I
Because,
agree.
yeah.
Does anybody want to change their answer? I will add Sunday school. All right. So Sunday morning service. Sunday morning service. We'll do a little experiment here.
Sunday morning service, discipleship.
Okay. What we got?
Discipleship.
Both.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Both.
Discipleship.
Okay. We'll go back. Sorry. Hold on. We'll go back here. Yes, ma'am.
I think I'm gonna say discipleship.
Okay. Wait.
Sunday morning,
Sunday morning worship.
both.
Both, Ryan?
Evangelism.
Boom.
Oh.
All right.
I said evangelism.
Okay. What you got? Both. Jesse? Wait, I'm sorry, I skipped. Rebecca?
Discipleship.
Jesse?
Ooh, I guess both, because I can't pick. They both have valid.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to Sunday PM.
Mine was both.
Sorry!
Now you're just trying to skip me.
I gave you a shot.
Because it's
All
your
right?
first week here.
I gave you a shot. You look somewhere behind the button. You can answer. Let's go really quickly.
Family feud style.
Sunday school discipleship.
Okay, I tell you what. Let's do Sunday school. Raise your hand if you go discipleship on Sunday school. Oh wow, 100% conformity. Okay. Wednesday night. Raise your hand if you fall in discipleship on Wednesday night.
I think,
I'm going
time
both.
out.
Yes.
I think that you hit a ton of evangelism opportunities for youth, children, like Wednesday night, because there's all this fun activities. But as
Okay.
an adult, if you're showing up to Wednesday night church, I feel like you're showing up for discipleship.
Okay, so did you raise your hand for
I'll
discipleship?
agree with
I
that.
was just saying age group is specific, because evangelism.
Age specific. I'm not gonna add.
I'm
another
just saying.
category. Okay, who say both? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A lot of you are going twice now. What are you doing?
What are you talking about? Oh, did I see that? Oh, sorry. Changing the game.
You're
Okay.
killing me. Anybody on evangelism on Wednesday night?
I said that just because whenever I was younger, I mean, it's the age thing, but
Yeah.
I started coming to church on Wednesday nights, just for the fun of it.
Okay,
You know, so that's,
I like that. That's fine. Yeah. Sunday night. Sunday night. Raise your hand for discipleship. So it's almost, not quite. I'm gonna put this at 90%. Y'all see how quick I just did that math right
Wrong
there?
math.
That's that good math. That's probably not 90%. It's probably like
I was like, but is it accurate?
probably not. All right. I just didn't want to count. If I'm being honest, there's too many hands. Both. Who's got both? 1, 2, 3. So the rest. Or evangelism. Did anybody say evangelism? I feel like, how many people are in the room? I feel like 90% is dang close. Somebody needs to do that math on the calculator, but you don't have to right now. So, let's see what we got. A lot of both, a lot of discipleship, very few times in the week that should be intentionally focused on evangelism. All right, now I want to answer a question last week that Rebecca, I think you asked, and I may be completely wrong about the question, so forgive me. And you can ask it again at the end if we don't ever answer it. But what do you do? So like you have the early church, and the early church was like hyper-focused. Like we know that. It's fact. Like we can't deny that. The early church was hyper-focused. When we get together, this is family time. And we're going to get trained up. We're going to get raised up. We're going to be dynamic. And when we go out from this place, the world is going to be saturated with the salt and the light. And now we have churches, local churches, that very clearly focus, I would say that if we get like an honest assessment of the majority of churches, of evangelical churches in America, you would see a whole lot more on this category over here. Is that fair? Or does anybody want to push back on that? Oh, that's my phone that's been ringing. I'm sorry. I'm like, golly, just turn the phone off. Anyways, I think that there would be, like, on all 4 categories, yeah, there would be a lot of tallies over here on the evangelism side of things. Yes, ma'am.
So, quick question, what are you classifying as evangelical within our weekly stuff? Is that like just a gospel during the church, or are you talking about actually hosting the once a month family nights during the summer, BDS, because those I would term as evangelical?
Yeah. I think that most of the things that we do outside of the week, the weekly thing, is definitely going to fall into the realm of evangelism. My personal opinion. I do think that as we try to identify a church service, I'm gonna make a statement here, and this is probably where I'm going to part ways with most of you, and we can agree to disagree, but at the very least think about this. All right, I'm gonna make a claim that on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Sunday school, it's impossible to do both. I'm gonna make that claim, okay? I'm gonna try to back that claim up, and y'all feel free to push, bite, claw, scratch, whatever. I don't know. Anytime you say, "Hey, I'm going to try to evangelize and disciple in the exact same scenario, in the exact same setting," one of the things is going to be hurt. So much that I don't know that you can really call it one of the things anymore. So let me just give the example. If you go into a church service on a Sunday morning and you say, "Hey, I want to evangelize the lost and I want to disciple the found," okay? Well, if you really want to evangelize the lost, that church service is going to look, sound, and feel very different than what it would be if you wanted to disciple the found. And so if you made that decision in your mind, you're more than likely going to lean so far one way that the other way, the discipleship way, which is the costly way, which is the hard way, which is the narrow way, is just going to get missed. Essentially, like it'll be a repetitive moment of, "Hey guys, here's a general principle for you to think on for the next week, and we just gotta hope and pray in giving you that general principle that you'll actually go and think on it and maybe do something with it." Does that make sense? So I'm gonna throw out that, and I'm gonna leave Wednesday night as a possibility because Jesse, kind of what you said, that like I think Ashley, you said it too. Like you do have student ministry, children's ministry, adult ministry, this ministry, like, and at times in our church's life, they have all been kind of like doing a little bit of a different thing. Right now, they're all kind of centralized on the same goal, at least in theory. Maybe not in practice all the time, but at least in theory, they're all kind of focused on the same thing. But certainly in our very recent past, there has been like this, like, "Hey, this is for evangelism, we're going to go all out evangelism. This is for discipleship, and we're going to go all out discipleship." Or this is for, and so I think that's possible because, I think it's possible because you have the different settings, like there's different rooms. But anytime you bring people together in the same room and you say, "Hey, I want to do both of these things," I'm just going to tell you, I think it's impossible. I actually don't think it can be done. I think that there has to be a choice, a cognitive choice where you say, "We're either going to do this or we're going to do this. And if we're going to do this, let's go all in on it." Like be the missionary. Like put yourself in the missionary mindset. What do I got to do to help that lost person see the need for Jesus? What do we got to do to get them in the building? What do we got to do to make them feel comfortable? What do we got to do to make them feel like we were prepared for them, ready for them? And like let's just go all in on that. If we're going to go the discipleship route, it's like, "Hey, I really don't care if you're comfortable. Like we're going to carry our cross this morning. You don't have a cross to carry. This is probably going to be weird for you in some degree." Any pushback on that? I'm open for it. There's plenty of people that disagree with me on that, by the way. Come on, I know some of you disagree. It's okay. It's okay. I will receive it. No? Oh, wow. Okay. So we just have agreement then. Y'all change y'all's mind that easy? Y'all don't ever need to change y'all's mind that easy. I was lying about the I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. So here's the point with all this, and I've kind of got some. I got some homework for all of us. The church in America today is a product of its last 200-year history. We can't separate ourselves from that. And I'll be frank. I don't think that it is a wise thing for churches who, for the last 200 years, have tried to do both. Or they've either tried to do both, or they tried to just do only evangelism. I don't think that it is wise for churches just to be like this. We're done. And let's just go all discipleship or something like that. I don't think that's wise. I think that it's probably going to do a whole lot more harm than good, at least in the immediate. And so I think that the job of churches right now, the job of churches is to provide platforms so that spiritual gifts can be utilized, so that spiritual disciplines can be practiced. And more than likely, those platforms are not going to be Sunday morning during the worship service. That makes sense, everybody? It's like, hey, like Sunday morning during the worship, there's so much stuff going on. It's typically the front door that somebody has for us here at Central Baptist Church. Okay, so if we're going to lean into it, then let's lean all the way into it. One of the things that I really love about Dr. Mike, it don't matter what passage we're in, there's going to be a gospel presentation at the end of the sermon. Why? Because we're leaning into that evangelism, right? But with that being said, we have to provide opportunities for Christians to be unapologetically Christian. We got to provide opportunities, kind of like, this is more like a teaching session, a teaching time. But, the home groups, I'm just going to be honest. Like, this might be shocking, or you might be like, you disagree, that's okay. But I hope that there are no non-Christians that are attending home groups. That's my personal hope. Because I hope that our Christians at home groups feel, after a period of time, transparency and all that's stuff that has to be built up over time. But I hope that our home groups become a place where the Christian can feel like, here, I'm not necessarily comfortable, but I'm safe. And anything and everything is on the table. It can all be talked about. And it can all be handled in this safe place where there is no worry about gossip, there is no worry about judgment, there is no worry about some sort of crazy rebuke or something like that. It's just like, hey, this is my family, this is where I'm doing stuff with. Right? And so, I think that the job of churches is to provide that platform. We got to be intentional about it. So there's just some best practices that I just want to throw out there. It's on the last page. So if y'all want to kind of read along with me, you're more than welcome to. If not, it's okay. Number 1, know what your church has to offer in discipleship and spiritual formation, and commit yourself to a group program or study, whatever. All right? I think that y'all clearly, this group has a very good handle on what we have to offer here at Central Baptist Church. I think that's fantastic. And so, know what we have to offer. And every once in a while, just take an inventory of your heart. What's missing, right? There will be some seasons in your life where you're just like, man, I got to have more Bible right now. I got to have more Bible. Okay, great. Get involved in one of our Bible studies. There's tons of them. Get involved with one of them. You might have some points in your life where you're like, man, I really have got to have community. Okay, lean into the home groups, right? Hey, I really need something that's going to help my spiritual formation. Come to form class, Like there's all sorts of things. Like if you know what's going on, maybe not everything can be met because we're still lacking. I know that. There's still things that we either don't offer or we need to get better at, and we're trying. But sometimes we fail miserably. But just know what's there and take that spiritual inventory often enough so that way you can say, okay, I'm going to get plugged in doing blank. If your church, so this is just in general, if your church has no avenues for discipleship, spiritual formation, approach leadership as a willing member with your time, influence, money in search of solutions. All right, so what do I mean by that? If you take a spiritual inventory of your life and you do your homework and there is nothing that your local church has to offer to help you in that area, don't go look for another local church. Okay? I'm going to promise you here's what you're going to find. By the way, I'm saying this, I actually think that Jacksonville is loaded with great churches. I do think Central Baptist Church is one of those great churches, but we are, it's not like we're above. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Last year in 2023, the newspaper voted us the best church. Okay, so we are. No, I'm just kidding. But for us, I don't think that we're above any one of these really good churches in town. There's some great churches in town. Here's what I'm going to tell you that you're going to find if you go looking for another church. You're going to find a church that's lacking in some way. It might not be in the way that you're looking for. They might have the program that you're looking for. But you're going to eventually come to another point when you take a spiritual inventory of your own life and you're going to realize oh man, this church is lacking in some area. Here's what I can promise you. Unless you come to us with some crazy idea that's going to cost millions of dollars, we are in a real budget crunch right now, so I'm just throwing that out there. But if you come to one of us and say, hey, we have no blank, Like no space for me to meditate. And prayer needs to be more of an emphasis. Come, first off, with a willing heart that you might be a part of the solution. Like your actual time, your money, your influence might actually be a part of the solution. And come willing to just bring that and say, hey, like we need this, and I think that this is some ways that we can work with that. And I guarantee you there will be somebody that will provide that platform at Central Baptist Church if the platform is not already provided. There's plenty of people that come and say, hey, I've got this idea, and we're like, hey, great, did you know that we have home groups? And they're like, what? I had no idea. This is exactly what I've been looking for. Okay, well, here you go. But like, there are things like I think that our prayer ministry and kind of helping people learn how to meditate, I think it's really lacking, right? I mean, I would raise my hand and say I think that that's something that we struggle with right now. Well, one of you in here might be the solution to that. So don't go to like jump ship and leave your family behind. Like try to be a part of the solution. Number 3, reach down to the generations below you. Everybody in here. I do not care where you're at in your spiritual formation. You need to be eyeing somebody in a generation below you that you're saying, hey, I'm going to walk with this person. Like this person's going to walk with me, and I'm going to kind of show them the ropes. And you might be saying like, well, I just don't know much about my faith. I'm not that far progressed. You're probably further than they are. So like just walk with them. Like that's going to be a key to being a part of a local church and practicing the local church as a spiritual discipline. Practice the spiritual disciplines in community with others. I just told y'all about fasting. I don't even know how it got brought up, but it was like at our home group there was 3 things that got brought up. One was that like nobody in the group was fasting. One was very few people in the group were reading their Bible. Another one was that one of our members of our home group was like, every Sunday I want to go down and pray, but I'm afraid that people are going to judge me. All right? So that Sunday night, we determined right then and there, hey, every Thursday we're going to fast together. We haven't picked this back up. Right now we're going through some Psalms together, but we read the book of Galatians together, and we decided that we would all go down every Sunday, no matter what, and pray. Which, I'll just say this, has actually become my favorite part of our services. I like Mike's preaching, I like the singing, I like all the stuff, but it's like my favorite time of service. I get up, I move, I've got ADHD most of the time anyway, so I got to do something. I try to use my kids as excuses to do something, but people have started to get wise to that. So anyways, it's an opportunity for me to like get up, move, go down, and like get on my knees and pray with my family. It's like a special time. So like that right there was a moment, and I'll say this, in our home group, that was a real like game changer when we just started practicing those things together in community. And fasting, I hate it, it's the worst. But when you know that there's 10 other people that are hurting too that day, it's a little less painful, So yeah, like practice the spiritual disciplines in community together, and that's going to be very important for us moving forward. Seek to have everything you need for spiritual formation in your own local church. Now, what does that mean? Okay, I'll use myself as an example. Right now, again, kind of alluding to down the road when we talk about confession, right now, the guy that I confess my sin to most often, weekly, is a guy who does not go to church here. And there's some reasons for that. Like I'm in a little bit of a position that nobody else in here is in. Like I'm on staff here, so there's always just kind of been that awkward thing for me. Like I've had guys that I confess into in the church, but it's just always been like a little bit awkward for me. And so last November I was just praying, asking God, like, hey, like who do I need to reach out to? Who do I need to be doing this with? And this guy just kept coming to mind, and then God confirmed it with a pretty crazy sign one day. And so like he's somebody that I confess into on a weekly basis. Now here's the deal. I am very acutely aware that I don't need to rely on that forever. I think that it is my responsibility, and I've kind of learned this since then, to like develop that with people here at Central. It's like one of the things that like I've been talking to Rick about is like, hey man, be praying that God would send some guys that feel comfortable enough with me, and I feel comfortable enough with them, where we can just share sin with each other. So right now, like I'm hoping, I'm working towards this final thing, but it ought to be our goal that everything we need spiritually can be provided in our local church. You need good counsel. Sometimes you might need to go see a Christian counselor, like a psychiatrist or something like that. Something like that, that's okay. I'm seeing one right now. But my goal is that, like, after that 10th session, I'm going to be done, and we're kind of, we're done with that. And I'm moving back to the place, I say moving back, that where I can have those conversations with people that are in our church. You know, like I talked about, like, we're just confessing sin. Like, I think that that's something that I need to have here in the church. And so I'm kind of making roads that direction. But that should be our goal, to where everything we need, you know, somebody comes to you and says, hey, who's your favorite preacher, or something like that. And you immediately go, well, I mean, like, I have a pastor. You know, like, I don't have like a favorite preacher. I have a pastor, and he shepherds me, and I hear his sermons every Sunday. Well, okay, well, you know, who's the most influential person in your life? Well, my Sunday school teacher is, like, really powerful. Like, me and her have this, you know, relationship or whatever. You know, all those things provided in the local church. Does that make sense? I feel like I kind of beat that one up. Anyways. And then the final thing I would say, just some best practices for practicing this spiritual discipline would be, eventually, one of the things that we did not talk about on our board is that we have to take the church outside of the building, right? Think about how powerful this would be, just for a moment. I just want us to dream together just for a moment. There's 500 people that gather nearly every Sunday morning at Central Baptist Church. We are the second largest church in the Dogwood Trails Baptist Association. Woohoo, we made it, y'all, second place. 500 people, 80% of 500 people is 480. I'm just kidding, I don't know what 80% is. I just made it up. Did y'all know? Anybody got that? Is that going to be like 400? It's probably like 400, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm going to say 400. Let's just go 400. I hate that. 400 people leave our service on a Sunday morning, spiritually formed, ready to go, filled up with Jesus Christ, and in their mind, it's not, hey, I need to bring this person to church with me so my pastor can share the gospel with them. It's like, no, I'm the missionary. That's me. I'm the missionary wherever I'm at. You know, if I'm at my work, if I'm at my house, if I'm out at the park or whatever, I'm the missionary. 400 missionaries every Sunday got sent out. Crazy. That'd be nuts. Well, right. Like that's the pattern of the early church. 80% of evangelism was done outside. So, like I said, all these things, there's so much in here. I mean, we honestly could spend 5 or 6 weeks just talking about the church, and I feel like we, you know, even in 2 weeks we didn't do well. Probably a little scatterbrained, but all these things keep in mind and practice church. You know, like, don't consider the church a building. Consider church 2 things: the people and the practice. And I think that if we can do those 2 things and participate, then I think that we're gonna be really well. Any final questions, thoughts, comments, or anything like that? Has anybody got anything? Now's your time. If you don't speak up, I'm going to assume that you just affirmed everything that I had to say. And Daniel, you got something? You got something? Yeah. Rebecca, did I answer your question?
What are your answers to this? Like, do you think Sunday morning service is discipleship or evangelism? Because you said it can't be both.
I'm going to go probably.
But you just said Mike's message is evangelism.
Yeah, I'm always going to be the guy, though. Like,
You just broke your own rule.
I did. Yeah, I mean, like to answer the question, like,
But it was should it be?
So
not
are we
is
doing
it?
both?
it's more of like should, like, what should the church do on Sunday morning?
What?
Oh, wait, did y'all answer what is it?
I wanted you to say, what are we doing?
Oh, what are we doing?
What would you say? Are we discipleship
I would
or
say-
evangelistic?
We actually are going to fall in here, and then I'm actually going to say that Sunday school right now is probably in the middle. So I'd say Sunday AM evangelism, PM discipleship, Wednesday night is in the middle because there's different spaces doing different things, and Sunday school.
Which you said Sunday school can't be both, so how do we fix that?
I don't know. You asked me. Don't put me on the spot now. Come
You're the
on,
one who
man.
said that the 3 you underlined cannot be both, and you put a big X over it.
Do as I say.
I think it's Sunday school is like I think I think Sunday school is here, but I think it might lean this direction, maybe.
randomly? Or?
Would you say that's because of leadership or because of lack of participation from everyone else?
Go with the hard-hitting questions. Always.
Sir.
I am going to say both
Both.
on that.
It
So-
can't be both.
Hold on, no. That was a completely different question. I'm not trying to dodge that one. I think that there probably is. I think in the okay, let me just say this. In the American evangelical mind, I think it is so ingrained to us to keep people out of hell that like this is gonna be the place that we live. Like, and we're always gonna try to do the things that even if we know that we shouldn't focus on evangelism in a certain setting, we just run to it. And I think that what you're seeing in the church today, especially among people who are 45 and down, is a shift back this direction. And as a result of that, I think that services, which are multi-generational, are still leaning evangelistic. I think that PM, which is right now the largest portion of our PM attendance, is young families, so it leans here. Wednesday night, again, I think it's there for probably a reason. And then Sunday school, I think that it has always been kind of leaning on this side a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to say. But I think that because of some of the generational shifts, it's like in the middle, kind of teetering that direction. Is that a fair enough response? Am I going to get any more?
I think you see that too in like the ages of pastors. Like older pastors, old Southern pastors are
Yeah.
always, trying to get people out of hell. Where some younger generations, authors and, famous preachers are really just trying to like make the actual Christian, the already Christian richer and deeper. And
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree with that
I
wholeheartedly.
think you see that just generally. And so I'm like, did this whole like 70s and 80s revival church growth movement, did that affect all these like Southern Baptist preachers and they can't get out of it? They're just constantly trying to reach people out
I
of
think that
hell.
you probably just hit the nail on the head. You think about the older guys, well, what generation did they grow up in, right? 70s, 80s. And so like it's just kind of ingrained in them. I do think that the thing we have got to be careful of, if you're sorry. I do think that the thing, this is that's kind of what I leave on. I think that the older generation has got to be careful that they don't get stuck in the 70s and 80s, kind of the church growth movement, right? I think that the younger generations, right, so I'd say like the 45 and younger crowd is going to have to make sure that in our pursuit of discipleship, we don't neglect this, right? Because again, we're people. We never just let the pendulum stop in the middle. We always go, we just go one way or the other. So I think that's kind of some of the challenges for us. Good thoughts. Anything else before we roll?
I think people like have it's like interesting to think about your giftings within. Do they fall? Is your gifting within a discipleship role, or is your gifting within an evangelistic role? Because gospel presentation, I can't. Like I'm not going to be an evangelist.
Yeah.
But I feel like I could. I have some.
Who here would say that like you feel very comfortable sharing the gospel with lost people or being around lost people, just in general?
Yeah, we used to be.
I see that with y'all too, by the way. Like I would affirm that. I think that like you do have to listen to your gifting. I'm going to use her name because she's been so faithful. Maybe I shouldn't use her name. I'm not going to use her name. She's been so faithful. She came to me one time, like I preached a sermon, and I can't remember like the sentiment. The sentiment was like, hey, everybody has a role in the kingdom. Not everybody's going to bring somebody to Jesus, but your thing might be raising up the next generation. Well, this lady's been in the children's wing, preschool wing for 30 years, something like that. Just same thing every Sunday, just raising up the next generation. And she just came to me just like really heartbroken or like relieved because she's like, I've always thought that I was a bad Christian because I wasn't sharing the gospel. It's like, lady, you like. Without you, they're like, how many second, third, fourth graders just like don't get it on Sunday mornings, right? Like she had or role, and her role did not put her around a lot of lost people. So I'm not going to her engaging her spiritual health on, hey, when was the last time you shared the gospel with somebody? That would be dumb. Like, that'd just be stupid for us to do that. Why? Because her gifting is somewhere else. And then there's some people who are kind of in the middle, like, yeah, I don't really, it's not something that I'm uncomfortable with. I'm not super comfortable with it. Well, then get out of your comfort zone every now and then, And for those people who are really comfortable with it, we oftentimes like kind of laud them as like the super Christians, but it's like, hey, you can't do what you do without homegirl over here teaching second graders, So like we have to have both and going on.
The best way to save a lost person is to prevent them from being lost.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment, right? Put them in a good home and a good setting.
Good foundation.
Yeah, good foundation. I'm sorry, we've gone so far over. Y'all got some homework. Do your homework. Next week, we're going to start our conversation about prayer and meditation. I will see y'all next week.